On Picolytics, Eternatus has a 0.43 usage rating, which is still probably higher than the amount of people that actually drive safely. Like, I was coming up to a construction zone the other day, and we were down to one lane because they were doing work on the road. So, typical construction workers with the signs up saying slow or stop. We had to cut into the other lane when we got that, and this gremlin comes up from a side street, and instead of, waiting for the oncoming traffic in the opposite lane to go forward, they just decided to turn right into the traffic and, do that. So, classic. But the main point is, using Eternatus means you haven't reached that level of disappointment as other people, so give yourself a pat on the back. Don't ask for your dad's approval, you're not there yet, though. Anyways, despite the fact that Eternatus looks like a dragon skeleton here, we have some whopping bulk on it. We have base 140 HP and 95 in both of its defensive stats. As far as our typing goes, we are poison dragon, which means we hard resist grass types. We resist bug, electric, fighting, water, poison, and fire. We have very, very good resistances right there. And overall, compared to our 4 weaknesses, we are in a nice, positive matchup against most typings. We are weak to Dragon, Ice, Ground, and Psychic, but overall, not the end of the world. Eternatus here also has a great base 145 special attack stat and 130 speed, which means you could play this thing either defensively or offensively. Eternatus has the flexibility, and it has a really good flexibility as far as items go too, and potential Tera types. So Eternatus can do either an offensive or defensive set, and honestly, with that 85 attack, we don't really have to care about that at the end of the day. Eternatus has plenty of options to make use of. So typically what we see for moves on Eternatus, especially when looking at it in Picolytics, we tend to see Dynamax Cannon, which is a base 100 dragon type stab option. You tend to see Sludge Bomb or Sludge Wave for a stab poison option. You can go with the single target base 90 power Sludge Bomb, or you could go for the base 95 spread option in the form of Sludge Wave. You typically see Flamethrower as well for some fire type coverage to hit those pesky steel type Pokemon. If you are looking at defensive sets, you tend to see Cosmic Power, since this can raise both your defense and special defense one stage each time per use. Recover is another option that you can see on defensive sets, since this gives you back half of your HP. And then the other thing to form the deadly triad of defensive moves on Eternatus is Toxic, so therefore you can whittle down your opponent's HP. And don't let that 90 accuracy fool you. When a poison type Pokemon like Eternatus uses Toxic cannot miss, which is a fun little mechanic. Anything else using Toxic, they have to abide by that 90 accuracy rule. Poison types, nah. That's a nice little buff they gave poison types there too. So Eternatus can run Toxic on a defensive set. And then another move that you do tend to see is Meteor Beam. If you pair this thing with a Power Herb, Meteor Beam is going to become a single turn use instead of having to charge one turn and then fire. So you get a special attack boost, and then you get to fire the Meteor Beam, which Flying type Pokemon, Ice type Pokemon, Incineroar, none of them appreciate a Meteor Beam so long as it connects. You do have to worry about that 90 accuracy, but I digress. Meteor Beam can be fun on Eternatus. So that's typically what you see for some common moves as far as that goes. And one thing I was thinking about for Eternatus, if you wanted to, for your spread options for an offensive set, you could run a combination of Dynamax Cannon, Sludge Bomb, and Flamethrower with a Life Orb to boost up your damage output. The combination of Dragon, Poison, and Fire is not hard-walled by any particular dual typing, so that could be a great combination to have. Alternatively, too, what you could do is you could run something like, say, Sludge Bomb, Meteor Beam, and Shadow Ball, which not many Pokemon hardwall that. I think it's only the King Gambit line that hardwalls Meteor Beam, Sludge Bomb, and Shadow Ball, so you could have some fun little spice right there on an offensive set. So you could do something like this. And as far as some EVs go, I was thinking you could throw 100 HP or 100 EVs into your HP to bring yourself up to 228. You can throw an extra point into your defense and your special defense, bringing you up from 115 to 116. If you have a modest nature with max investment, you hit 216 special attack. And with 148 speed EVs, you can outspeed Landorus Incarnate by exactly 1 point. A timid Landorus Incarnate does hit 168, and Life Orb, Sheer Force, Landorus can threaten this thing since it is a ground type, so being able to outspeed this and hit it for some major damage could be great at the end of the day. And on top of that too, Ogerpon is still a fairly prevalent Pokemon, so what you could do if you wanted to rearrange your EVs is if you take out some of your if you take out some of your HP investment here and bring Eternatus up to 179, so you have 228 EVs. Now you outspeed a maximum speed Jolly Ogerpon by exactly 1 point, and being a poison type means Eternatus can threaten Ogerpon with either Sludge Bomb or Sludge Wave to do some major damage. And the nice thing about Sludge Wave is it's a spread move, so unless your opponent has Wide Guard, you can just hit your opponent's Pokemon both at the same time. You can threaten that Ogerpon with the Sludge Wave, do some major super effective damage to it, and you can hit their partner for some chip damage depending on their typing, or you could do a lot of damage to them depending on their typing. So that's a fun little tidbit to have at the end of the day in your back pocket. So you could have something like that. As far as item options go for Eternatus, like I said, this thing does have very, very flexible options. For offensive items, like I mentioned, the Power Herb and the Life Orb, you can have something like that. Choice items, such as the Choice Specs and the Choice Scarf, are going to take advantage of the fact that Eternatus has a great offensive pressure right here with the 130 speed and 145 special attack. Locking yourself into a single move is a little bit risky, but the risk is really outweighed by the reward of having a 50% boost to your speed or your special attack for that matter. Another item that could be really nice on an offensive set is the Assault Vest, since that will give you a nice 50% boost to your special defense, and that way you now have a little bit of special bulk on your special attacker right here. And the fact that you're so fast at 130 is going to go very far in the long run. If we go back to the original spread that I had right here with the 169 speed and the 100 EVs into the HP, having the Assault Vest there means you are going to get that 50% boost into your special defense, which this is another reason why to have the even number at that 116 as opposed to that 115. You get an extra point right there. So with that 50% boost, Eternatus is really bulky on paper right there, so you do have that. But because that does lock you into using only damaging moves, what you could potentially do is you could run maybe Shadow Ball as a coverage option right there. And then that way too, you can hit ghost types for super effective damage. You can do some damage to Lunala, Calyrex, Shadow Rider, or even Lugia, so there is that, which is going to be relatively handy. Now, some other items that you could use on the defensive front could be, say, the Safety Goggles. This way you don't have to worry about Spore or Rage Powder redirection, especially if you aren't running Tera Grass. You do have those Safety Goggles to keep you safe. You could use a terrain seed, such as, say, the Grassy Seed or the Psychic Seed, and then this way you could get a +1 to either your physical defense for the Grassy Seed or a +1 to your special defense for the Psychic Seed if you are running either Rillaboom or Indeedee on your team. So definitely something right there that could help you out, since you'll get a little bit of extra bulk into one of your defensive stats, especially too if you are playing a defensive Eternatus. That will let you speed up your defensive boosts, and therefore it's going to be a little bit harder for your opponent to crack through you at the end of the day. And speaking of defensive sets, what you could probably do as far as a potential moveset goes is you could run Flamethrower to have some damage. You could run the Cosmic Power to boost up your defenses. You can have the Recover to restore your HP. And then you can just start whittling some stuff down with the Toxic. Maybe have that Tera Poison at your disposal. And then that way you don't have to worry about Toxic missing. And since Steel types wall the Poison typing, you do have that Flamethrower to do the damage. I have Mental Herb on this potential set here, and then that way you don't have to worry about being taunt bait. So if your opponent taunts you or encores you, the Mental Herb will activate, and therefore you'll get out of it for a single use, which would be relatively handy. And as far as the EVs go, what I was thinking of potentially is running 188 EVs into the HP to bring us up to 239. I have 132 defense EVs to bring us up to exactly 132. 36 EVs into the special attack to bring us up to 170. A calm nature with 116 EVs to bring us up to 143 special defense, and then 36 speed EVs to bring us up to 155. And this way, we now outspeed the likes of Quark Drive and Protosynthesis, Speed Booster, Iron Bundle, and Fluttermane under Tailwind, which means we can get off a Toxic, and then we can just start getting bulky. Or we go for the Cosmic Power, and they maybe have a redirection partner next to Eternatus, and we go from there. So as far as some Tera options go, I really like the option of Tera Grass, since we can drop our ground type weakness, and therefore we become resistant to Ursaluna Blood Moons, Earth Power, and on top of becoming a grass type, we still resist Miraidon's electric type attacks, which could be very handy at the end of the day, since Miraidon naturally outspeeds Eternatus, and it does threaten it with dragon type attacks. So being able to resist your electric matchup for Miraidon could also be handy, and then that way, if you Tera, you don't have to worry about your opponent just switching to an electric type move to hit you and do some major damage. Now, you do keep your ice type weakness, so you are still weak to Ice Rider's Glacial Lance, so an alternative Tera option could be either Tera Water or Tera Fire. Tera Fire keeps you neutral to electric type attacks, but it does make you weak to ground, and Tera Water does make you weak to electric type attacks, so you do have to be a little bit careful with your potential Miraidon matchup or your Calyrex Ice Rider matchup if you are worried about running into those two specific restricted legendaries, since they are incredibly hard hitting threats. Now, if you wanted to double dip on your Tera Poison to double your stab options on an offensive typing, you could definitely do that, especially since both Sludge Bomb and Sludge Wave would do some major damage, especially when paired with a Life Orb. And another option you could have for a little bit of a defensive idea is Tera Fairy, especially if you are running a defensive set. And the reason why I'm thinking Tera Fairy here is you're able to resist Urshifu Single Strike's Wicked Blow, so the guaranteed critical hit doesn't really matter. You're naturally going to be resisting that, and on top of that, you do resist Sacred Sword, so any Pokemon like Chen Pao that has Sacred Sword isn't really going to be cracking through you, and then we don't really have to worry about our defense boosts being bypassed. If you're worried about Sacred Sword, you could run Tera Ghost, but then Urshifu Single Strike gets around you with the Wicked Blow, so that's why I was thinking Tera Fairy for that. So I think those are some really good Tera options for Eternatus. But now let's get into the real steak and potatoes of the video and talk about some potential teammates to run next to Eternatus, since Pokemon battles involve 6 Pokemon, not 1 Pokemon. So some potential partners that I think could be really good for Eternatus for a defensive set. You could run Comfey, since you do have a +3 priority floral healing with triage as its ability, so we get 50% of Eternatus's HP back, and the +3 priority means we don't have to worry about the likes of Rage Powder or Follow Me, since the +3 priority is faster than their +2 priority. So you could have that for Comfey. Clefairy could be another great option, since you do have Friend Guard to reduce the overall damage that Eternatus takes. You have the Follow Me option to redirect attacks away, so Eternatus could start setting up with Cosmic Power or start going for the Toxic into things. And then you have the combination of either Life Dew or Heal Pulse to heal up Eternatus. If you go for the Heal Pulse, you can heal up 50% of Eternatus's max HP, or if you go for the Life Dew, you can heal both Clefairy and Eternatus for a quarter of their max HP, which could be great. As far as an offensive Eternatus set go, I think Tornadus or Whimsicott or essentially any fast Tailwind setter could be really handy to have next to Eternatus. Since Eternatus has base 130 speed, it doesn't take much investment to be able to outspeed a lot of fast threats. So we get that Tailwind up, and now Eternatus is going to start outspeeding things and going for some major damage. If you're running a Meteor Beam too, you could flip a matchup on an opponent by going for that Tailwind and then immediately firing the Meteor Beam and getting that special attack boost. So that could be really handy. Whimsicott could be a nice alternative to Tornadus since it does get access to fake tears, since you can then soften some things up with that by dropping their special defense 2 stages, which overall really nice at the end of the day. And then as far as general supportive options go for teammates, Incineroar, Rillaboom, and Urshifu Rapid Strike all form a nice grass, fire, and water core, and they all have great pivoting synergy with each other since Incineroar can run either Parting Shot or U-Turn. Rillaboom has U-Turn, Urshifu has U-Turn. You can do some major damage to things with a Choice Banded U-Turn or even a Choice Banded Close Combat with Urshifu. Rillaboom and Incineroar both have the Fake Out support. You know, basic stuff right there, but it can be great since you can lock down your opponent with the Fake Out with either Incineroar or Rillaboom, and then that way Eternatus can either set up or go for damage. You could also sneak in a Recover, which could be relatively nice. Incineroar does have that Parting Shot too, so maybe your opponent thinks that they're blocking a Fake Out by switching in either, say, a anti-priority Pokemon like Indeedee for Rigoraph's Arena, and you go for the Parting Shot instead, and then that way too Incineroar switches out. You can bring in, say, Rillaboom, and if your opponent had brought in an Indeedee, you can just reset the terrain. If your opponent thought they were being clever and pivoting in a Miraidon, well, you could bring in the Rillaboom to get rid of the electric terrain. So there is that. Rillaboom has a nice potential kit right here with the Assault Vest with the special defense boost, since you can have the priority Grassy Glide, or you could just do straight damage with Wood Hammer. You could also sneak in a knockoff or a high horsepower into a moveset to just have some extra spice right there. And as I mentioned with the Urshifu, close combat, U-turn, off a Choice Band could do major damage. Surging Strikes just does a good amount of damage to begin with. If you wanted to too, you could also switch out the Choice Band for a Choice Scarf, and now you have a faster threat right there with the redirection. Any form of Ogerpon is probably going to be a great partner for this, since Ivy Cudgel just does a lot of damage. Both the Wellspring and Heartflame forms of Ogerpon can stack their damage with their Ivy Cudgel getting a weather boost from either the rain or the sun. Groudon and Kyogre are still fairly prevalent on the latter, so you could potentially take advantage of their weather, and then you could just deal some good damage. And you do have the Follow Me support, so if you don't want Ogerpon to necessarily go for damage, you can always redirect things away with Follow Me. And then finally, I think Indeedee could be a great partner here, since we don't have to worry about priority with the Psychic Terrain. If Eternatus takes a Tera that drops its weakness to Psychic from Poison, you can benefit from having the Psychic Terrain cancel out priority attacks, and then Eternatus also doesn't have to worry about the boosted Psychic type damage coming its way. So Psychic Surge Indeedee could be really handy, and plus you have the Follow Me and Helping Hand, and then Helping Hand can also just boost up Eternatus's attack, so you don't necessarily have to strictly rely on a Power Herb Meteor Beam set. So anyways, that's a lot to go over, but I think Eternatus could be a really fun Pokemon at the end of the day. I really like this, and eventually, when I'm done filming some of the Necrozma stuff, I'm looking forward to hitting the ranked ladder sometime in August with Eternatus. Let me know what you think of this Pokemon down in the comments below, and I will see you next time.